when you were deciding that you're gonna leave the engineering world and you will become a product manager. Was that something you just realized at one point that, okay, now it's time that I become a product manager? Did it like click at a single aha moment, or was it more of a gradual realization?
It was definitely not an aha moment, but a gradual realization. I loved building things and really liked seeing them work. Uh, and that meant like different things. Like I did my engineering where I did build both hardwares and softwares, and it really gave me joy, essentially. So when I transitioned into my first job from college, I really started enjoying building things from zero to one. And that's how I got into software engineering. The biggest validation that I got was when I built something, it worked, and the client really appreciated it. And that's when I started realizing like what I really, really take joy in is when what I have built is actually providing the value that it has intended to. So that's when I started thinking about, hey, like I should probably get myself inserted a little bit more into understanding what these users who I'm building this for are looking for. And that's where I really started talking to people, understanding, hey, like, what are you looking for? And that's how I like started thinking about the producty stuff. And like that was like my first foray into product management without even realizing I was trying to do that.
From your previous experience, from when you were a software engineer, what were the most advantageous things that you carried from the engineering? Did you use that in your new role as a product manager?
It definitely bring in a lot of leverage when I transitioned into this world. I'll actually present both the sides. It was beneficial and it was also disadvantageous at the same time.
Hold up. Before we dive in, let's give a shout out to Appmixer, the game changer in SaaS automation. Appmixer is a no-code platform that helps SaaS companies ship AI agents in their products in days. The way it works is simple. You build agents in Appmixer and deploy them in your product. As a result, your users become far more productive and you gain a competitive edge in the AI race. AI is changing the SaaS industry, bringing both challenges and opportunities. And that's exactly what this podcast is all about, tackling the day-to-day challenges of product management. In each episode, I sit down with product management heroes who face these challenges every day. I ask the questions, they bring the practical answers. Without further ado, let's see who's joining us today. Hello everyone again. It's my great pleasure to welcome here today Mr. Akshay Bhalla. Welcome, Akshay.
Thank you so much, Jerry. Excited to be here.
Lovely. Thanks for joining us. So Akshay is currently product lead in Stripe. Before that, he worked as principal product manager at Meta, senior product manager at EY, product manager for data management at PwC. Before that happened, Akshay was actually a software engineer. And so today's podcast episode is called From Software Engineer to PM, a career shift story. So we have a great guest for this topic, I believe. So let's get started. And maybe actually, if you could start with some background, what was your like starting point? What was your life as a software engineer? Maybe the first question would be, what motivated you to become a software engineer?
Yeah, sure thing. So I started my career back in 2010 as a software engineer. I was primarily working for uh, fintech clients and building insurance products for them as a software engineer. Uh, and the reason why I got into software engineering in the first place was I loved building things and really liked seeing them work. Uh, and that meant like different things. Like I did my engineering in instrumentation and control, where I did build both hardwares and softwares. Uh, I naturally had a more inclination towards software products, and it really gave me joy, essentially. So when I transitioned into my first job from college, uh, I really started enjoying building things from 0 to 1. Uh, and that's how I got into software engineering. The the biggest validation that I got back then was when I built something, it worked, and the client really appreciated it because it was a services company. Uh, and that's when I started realizing like what I really, really take joy in is when what I have built is actually providing the value that it has intended to. So that's when I started thinking about, hey, like I should probably get myself inserted a little bit more into understanding what these users who I'm building this for are looking for. And that's where I really started like talking to people, understanding, hey, like what are you looking for when I like because like a lot of things when you start your career are top down. So essentially your manager tells you that, hey, we are going to do this. Can you take this module and build this end to end? Right? But very rarely a new software engineer gets to understand the why behind things. And what I found for myself was that is the why behind things was what really excited me and really motivated me. So that's how I started talking to my users and like really understand like, hey, you're looking for this XYZ feature. Can you tell me more about what are the different problems that you're facing? Why do you need this? And that's how I like started thinking about the producty stuff. And like that was like my first foray into product management without even realizing I was trying to do that. So that's how I started thinking about it.
Okay, great. Can you share also what was some like intersection with product management at that time? I imagine you started your career as some junior software engineer, right? And
Mhm.
I guess you had a product manager who was giving you the tasks. How did that cooperation
Yeah.
go? Like,
Yeah. Great question. So the way it worked was as a software engineer who's just starting out in the career, a lot of times what happens is you get directive from either the product manager or your engineering manager to build something, right? You will either be rolled into the whole conversation once all of the things have been finalized and the vision is already out there. And that's when you get looped in, hey, like this is what exactly we want to build in. Can you do a technical design? Uh, and more often than not, it's not as complicated because you're just starting out your software engineering career. So the way my collaboration with product managers in the beginning was that I got the PRD after the vision and the requirements had been finalized. And when I received those, I had to essentially just look into what we are trying to build and translate that into a technical design first, and then translate that technical design into an actual code and the output. Uh, the interesting piece over there was, and I'll share this with an example. So I was working for an insurance client where I had to build a predictive algorithm that automatically sorted their applications into different risk categories. So if you are a person applying for a new insurance, then you will be either categorized into a high risk, low risk, medium risk because based on different parameters, and that's how insurance companies try and assess your risk factor to their company. And I was supposed to build this whole backend uh, system based on the requirement. Uh, and what happened was when I received this requirement, the first natural question that I received thought of was, yes, we need this, but why are we trying to build something where we can procure something, right? Like, is that something that does not exist? Uh, how are other companies doing it? And why is this something that we're building from scratch? So all these questions came up in my conversations with the product manager, and they really helped me understand. But then I found myself more inclined towards understanding the depth of the product. Uh, and the collaboration was great. The product managers were really helpful, but then I realized that some of the product managers that I've worked with were not as technical. And what I very quickly realized early in my career was that I have some sort of a leverage coming from a technical background and really digging deep into the product depth. And that combination has a superpower of becoming massive as I venture into the tech industry. So, long story short, that's how I started kind of collaborating with the product manager and really trying to understand like how they operate, how they are working with the users, how they are trying to understand the user problems, and really try and understand like the why behind things. Uh, what I also started doing proactively was instead of just like being handed over the work, I started figuring out the work with the product manager. So like those brainstorming sessions with the product managers really helped that knowledge flow both ways, where I was able to educate the product manager on the technical know-how, and the product manager was able to educate me on the product know-how. And like that collaboration worked really, really nicely. And really helped me, to be honest, like gain the skills that I really needed to venture into this product world.
Okay, that sounds great. It all makes sense. Um, you mentioned that you felt like, or it was a fact, you were more technical than a lot of product managers you worked with. Um, um, was that some sort of some even slight like a frustration, like that they didn't actually understand that there's maybe a better solution because you as a technical person could envision that maybe even better. So that's the question, and also if there were some other frustrations that you experienced as during your engineering career.
Yeah, I wouldn't call it frustrating, but it was definitely a point of friction with the product manager because a lot of times what I found was that when I suggested a solution, the product manager's anchor was always like, can we get this done faster? And I found myself explaining it over and over again on why it cannot be delivered faster, what are the challenges that I'm facing on the technical front, and then like what are the best options available. I think in hindsight, what I learned over there was uh, if I can educate the PM more on the technical front and like really enable them to understand like why we are struggling to come up with a faster solution and what will be the trade-offs that will have to be made to go to market faster, I think that will enable a better decision making even for the product manager. So that was not really a frustration point, but more of a friction point that I had to get over initially. And especially as a junior engineer, what happens is a lot of the times, since you haven't built the credibility up front, you get questioned on the architectural decisions in general, right? And like at that point, I had to really get the confidence of my team and my engineering manager to say that, hey, uh, these are the actual technical trade-offs. Even though we would like to build this solution faster than like what is possible, is essentially will not be useful for the user, right? And like those technical trade-offs became the foundation of me as a product manager. Because now when I think of a solution or when I come up with a requirement, more than dictating what should be done, I always ask how it can be done and what is the fastest route possible. I think as a product manager, I have gained the skills very early in my career on how to really work closely with the engineering teams and really like ramp yourself up on the technical domain versus just like relying solely on the engineers. When we get into these rooms with the engineers, what happens is a solution get proposed and then there is a healthy debate of like how we can alternatively come up with something short term and a long term. And that's something is not possible if the product manager does not have the basic foundational technical knowledge. And especially like in today's world where the whole world is moving towards the AI side of things. I think it's even more important for product managers to have a basic understanding of how their product's backend works. And that's something that I really, really learned very early in my career as a software engineer, that I can use these skills to have that level of product impact and build really powerful products for the users that will solve the problems while incurring the minimal technical debt as possible. So that helped me initially.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Awesome. Um, when let's now maybe focus on that like transition period on when you were
Mhm.
deciding that you're gonna leave the engineering world and you will become a product manager. Um, was that something like you just realized at one point that okay, now it's time that I become a product manager? Did it like click at a single aha moment, or was it more of a like a gradual realization?
Uh, it was definitely not an aha moment, but a gradual realization. Uh, I was a software engineer for 3 years, the first 3 years of my career. And at that point, because I was starting right out of college, I had like very little knowledge about the different kind of roles that exist in the product world. Uh, I did not know what a product manager does. There are very adjacent roles to product manager. For example, there are technical program managers these days. We have PMMs, and there are many other roles which are like very adjacent to product. But I had like little to no knowledge of what it takes to be a product manager and exactly what the job requires. So it was definitely a gradual realization of after like doing some back end work, building the products myself on the technical front, and really like working closely with the product managers to understand the job well. And then when I realized the complexity of the product manager role, the impact of that role, and really the challenges that come with that role is like what really enticed me to get into this profession. Uh, and it was not something that I knew that I can do it right out the gate. I was very aware at that point that this role requires a lot of skills that I need to work on. Uh, it is not just technical. I need to build a good product sense up front to understand how to kind of think about ideas. I need to be extremely close to the users and really start understanding the pain points that they're facing, the challenges that they're facing, and how that can be translated into a product. So that was like a lot of fundamental knowledge that I was lacking. So I was very clear that I wanted to get into the space, but uh, I wanted to do it methodically. So right after my software engineering career, I decided to pursue my master's, which brought me to States. So I did my master's uh, in information systems here in US, and that really like built the foundational building blocks of my product management career. It really taught me on the basics of the basics, which is like what exactly is required to build a product from zero to one. How do you work closely with the users and really try and understand the mindset that they have? How do you like figure out what are the different problem sets that they're facing and how do you translate those problem sets into opportunities? So like all that foundational knowledge was something that I gained during my masters. And after that, like it was all about like how do I apply that gained knowledge into the real world. And that's where like my foray into consulting happened, fortunately. And like I got to work very closely with the clients. Uh, and when I say clients, I had the good fortune of working with a lot of C-level execs during my consulting days. Uh, I understood like how these C-level execs think about the company strategy. How do they think about solving problems at a macro level for the company? And that really also was a learning experience for me because a lot of times what you do is you're at a micro level trying to solve problems for individual users when those problems can be very easily themized at a macro level and solved for more broader audience. So like that kind of instilled my that instilled like a different thought process for me when I started working with those C-level execs. Uh, and I think like all the skills that I have gained from my software engineering days, from my masters, from my consulting days, like really, really uh, prepared me for my product management foray when I transitioned into Meta. So, like, definitely to answer your question, uh, it was not sudden. It was definitely a very gradual learning experience over the years, quite frankly, which is still going on. That learning for a product manager will never stop, and it has not stopped for me, fortunately. I take pride in that because every single day in my current job as well, I am discovering a new problem that can be solved. I'm discovering uh, a very different kind of feedback that I receive from the user. And I'm trying to like still brainstorm on the things that can be built to solve these user problems. So it's still going on, and hopefully, I will find more challenging user problems in future as well.
Okay, great. So do I understand it correctly that so you studied bachelor, then you became software engineer, and then your master studies that was on product management? Yeah, like you studied product management in the US, or was it still software engineering program?
So, so it was a broader program. It was my master's was in information systems, where product management is a smaller piece of information systems, but actually that holistically prepares you for the different parts, which is
Right.
like how do you work on, for example, the databases? How do you gain knowledge about like the different operational side of the corporations? How do you work on the technical front as well as the product front? So like it kind of holistically prepares you for different things.
But at that point, you already knew that product management is something that is the most attractive for you, and you would see your future
Yeah.
career in that sector. Okay. All right.
Yes,
So
and that's the goal that I was working towards.
I see. I see. Great. And so, what was the real like first experience when you became a product manager? Was it at PwC, or was it more like a consultant? Did you work there more as a consultant? And what do you
Yeah.
perceive as the first real, like, let's say, the product management role?
Yeah. Yeah. My first foray into product management was in PwC, right out of college. Um, and interestingly, like PwC and like these consulting firms do not have like titles, right? So essentially, a consultant could mean a lot of things. So my designation was initially to begin with as a consultant. And what I realized was like my job was to go and talk to financial services sector clients and really understand what the problems are that they're facing and what is the goal that they're trying to achieve. So, for example, uh, when I went to these clients, so like some clients would come back and say that, hey, like we are facing latency in our business productivity and we want to solve it for our users where like a business can be more efficient and users can be more productive, right? So that's essentially a problem statement example that was given. And at that point, like my job was to really go behind the back end and like talk to the users, and like see how what exactly the day to day it looks like currently, where are the most friction points, and then like use those feedback and friction points and translate them into a product strategy. And that product strategy usually lasted anywhere between like 6 months to multiple years, like 3 years. And that that decision making and the product requirements had like that whole life cycle gave me an exposure to like how the products are built. More often than not, like the decision was like, hey, do you build a new product from ground up, or do you procure something that is already available out of the box? And more often than not, what happened was because of the problems that that particular business was facing at that point in time, the custom nature of product that they were looking for, it was better to build it from ground up than procure. And that's how like I got into like the whole product management life cycle where you translate the problems into opportunities, you translate opportunities into like solutions, and then like try to measure the impact if it has actually solved the business problem that we set to solve it or not, and then like formulate a long-term strategy to sustain that and improve that over a period of time. So like that was my first foray into how I envision an end-to-end product build to achieve business impact.
Mm-hmm. Great. And from your previous experience from when you were a software engineer, in that first
Mhm.
product management job in PwC, um, like what were the most advantageous things that you carried from the engineering, or did you use those skills that you could actually write some code yourself? Did you use that in your new role as a product manager, or not really?
Yeah. No, it definitely bring in a lot of leverage when I transitioned into this world. I'll actually present both the sides. It was beneficial and it was also disadvantageous at the same time. It was definitely beneficial in a way that I was able to understand the technical challenges behind building a solution. uh, it was beneficial in a way where I was able to go deeper into the weeds with the engineers and really try and understand like what potentially solutions could be that will be more optimal, that will uh, bring down the infrastructure cost, and that will be actually more helpful to go get to the market faster. So that was the advantageous side of things. On the disadvantage, what I very quickly realized was that because I had the technical knowledge, I was becoming more of a hindrance to the engineers than a help. And that is not a good sign. So, like when we work with the engineers, it's super important that you give them the room to innovate, you give them the room to solution, and you give them the room to really, really come back with something that is catered to the overall vision that you're working towards. And what I realized was that because I had the technical background and I understood the nitty gritty of things, I was trying to guide the solution more than I should have. In hindsight, that was detrimental and actually slowed down things because uh, even though I was in weeds, I was not in as much weeds as the engineers themselves. So I definitely took a lot from a software engineering career, uh, but in hindsight, and this is something that I still practice, like it's super important to give that room to the engineers to innovate. So now the way I do it is, even though I'm involved in solutioning to some extent, if an engineer comes back and tells me that, hey, like this is the best route forward, I have figured out a way, and like I have made peace with like trusting the right people with the right jobs. So that's something that I practice now, and it has worked beautifully for me. Like I think my collaboration with the engineers have improved, and not just engineers. My collaboration with all the cross-functional partners have improved because I've started to trust more. I trust that we have the right people in the right jobs to do the right things. I have the trust that like all of us understand the vision that we're working towards. All of us have a common understanding. All of us have the same intentions. So all of us will be doing the same right things and doing our best, to be frank. So I think like that is something that I've learned over the years. But like initially, I was a little flaky after my software engineering.
I understand. Well, that's a nice self reflection, that maybe you were actually creating some obstacles for the engineers in the team. I
Yeah.
assume also that this industry evolves so quickly that maybe the things that you learned as your when you were a software engineer,
Mm.
it evolved, right? And then your ideas or your opinions got a bit outdated potentially, but you are still forcing
Yes.
the engineers the way you saw it. Now, do you keep yourself updated uh, on the engineering world as well? Like, are you still like technical? Like, do you can you imagine going back to engineering like any day now if you decide?
Uh, that's a loaded question. So I'll answer it in two parts. Uh, First one, yes, I still keep myself up to date. And the reason for that is not because I want to go back to engineering. The reason for that is uh, Because right now my goals are to build the best product possible to solve the user problems. It has a very heavy technical component. And to be honest, like the products that I'm reading currently at Stripe as well, they're like heavily technical products. And you really cannot build technical products without having that technical know-how because that will hinder your decision-making capabilities. So if you want to have uh, products that do their job well, and those are technical products, keep yourself up to date with what's going on in the market, what are the other competitors doing to have that leverage. So that's number one. The second question, if I will go back to the software engineering career, I I don't think it is possible because as we said, like the landscape has changed heavily. Uh, and I think over the years, my skill sets as a software engineers have definitely deteriorated because I have gained more skill set on the product side of things. So even though I'm technical enough to be dangerous, I'm not technical enough to be a software engineer, especially in a complex landscape of today.
I see, I see. Thank you. Well, what were some of the skills that you gained as a product manager? How do they differ maybe from the ones that were important during your engineering career?
Yeah. Uh, so as a product manager, I think the one of the most important skills that I think I have gained over the years is to work back from the user. It's super important you start working back from the user, their needs, and also like starting with the why behind things. Uh, I have picked up a skill to question more. I have the I've picked up the skill to really read between the lines when I'm talking to the user because quite often the user will tell you what they want, but essentially that might or might not solve the problem for them. So what I really have learned over the years is like dig deeper into like what are the problems that they're facing, right? What is the journey that they have end to end? On what stages of that journey are they facing problems? And then like come up with a solution that will solve the problem versus like build a solution which the user wants. Because even though the user will have an exact need that, hey, like, can you build uh, a product that, provides me audio, uh, but like that solution might not look like Spotify today, just to give an example, right? So think about the user problems, always work back from that. The next thing that I have picked up as a product manager and really honed it over the years, and I'm still working on it, is like a product manager needs to have really strong communication skills, both written and verbal. And what that means is, as software engineers, we are on the backend side of the things, and very rarely we get to uh, present these ideas in front of like really senior leaders in these companies, right? And more often than not, it's also not common when a software engineer will present a product vision, right? So as a product manager, what I've learned is the communication becomes the key uh, in selling your vision to the senior leaders of the company and to other people who you work with, right? If a product manager is not able to build a compelling vision for for their own product area that actually solves the user problem, one, they will not get a buy-in from the leadership. Essentially, you will not get funded to build that. Second, your team will not be motivated. So, if you are leading a team of 200 engineers, you really need to have such a compelling vision that those 200 engineers become your mercenaries. They are actually in your vision, they march with you all along to build that vision that you have actually thought of, right? So that's the second, like having really, really crisp and really strong written and verbal communication skills. And the third thing is something that software engineers also think about, but they think about at a micro level, which is how do we measure things? What I mean by that is when I'm building a software, what my measurability is tied to is how my application is performing, right? Is my latency is my latency latency high enough? Is my throughput good? Is the compiling time low enough? Right? Like all those metrics are very important. Uh, However, like that is very micro when it comes to the product world. In the product world, when you move and build a product, there are a bunch of things that you need to start measuring, which is like, am I able to make this product discoverable for the user? Like, am I getting enough landing from the user? Like, is there enough adoption from the user? Like if I have built a good software, are more and more users actually using it? If there is enough adoption, am I able to acquire more users? Uh, that means that if I have the right marketing strategy to get my users to use this product at the lowest customer acquisition cost, do I have a good retention? So basically, if you are a user, like, okay, you have used it once, but will you use it again? Are you a recurring user, right? Am I able to generate revenue out of this? Uh, yes, like users love this product, but will they pay for it? And then like the last thing is, how do I make sure that uh, there is a continuous process of improvement with this? So yes, you get that continuous feedback from the user, you iterate on, and you improve the product. So like having that end-to-end vision of measurability when it comes to product was something that I learned after I transitioned. While I was a software engineer, I was looking at a very micro level only. So a lot of learnings over the years, and I'm still learning, as I said. But like at a high level, if anyone is looking to transition into the product world from engineering, I really encourage them to start looking at the macro things. How are things working end to end? How are we getting the users? How are they staying on the platform? How are they paying for it? All those things will really help build the product intuition.
Mm-hmm. That's great. That's actually the next chapter for us here. Um,
Hmm.
Now that you completed this transition, you transitioned from engineering to PM. Um, if there are some other engineers out there thinking about this transition as well, what would you recommend them? You just mentioned one thing to take a look at
Hmm.
like more macro level rather than the micro statistics on how the product performs.
Hmm.
Take a look at other metrics that are more important from the product management point of view. Um, but how can engineers determine if product management is the right career path for them?
Yeah. Uh, I would suggest engineers to start looking and like working really closely with the product managers to begin with. More often than not, what happens is because like we are so used to like on the being on the back end and like really building things on the technical front, we rarely understand like why the product manager wrote up the PRD that they did, right? So I would encourage like the software engineers to begin like really being working closely with the product managers and understand like what is the why behind their vision. Once they understand the why behind the vision, once they understand the problems that the PRD is trying to solve or the product is trying to solve, I think they will have a better grip and a good entry point into like understanding, even if that is something that they're interested in. A lot of times, like software engineers, once they realize like the nuances and the information that is needed at that level, it can be discouraging. So I would like the first thing I would suggest is like look into if that is something you're interested in, like understand the job of a product manager to begin with. The next thing I would say is like if you have discovered that you actually have an inclination towards product manager, the next thing you should start doing is like building those skill sets that are very foundational to a product manager. So uh, for that, I would recommend work, uh, try and get some skill set and like try and take up on some work which is like outside of your current software engineering scope. What that means is it might require you to maybe like tag along with the product manager to conduct user interviews. Be a fly on the wall. Understand like what are the questions that the product manager or the UXR people are asking to understand the user problems. Have that skill set. The next thing is like if you are be a partner to the product manager when they are trying to formulate that vision. So that brainstorming session along with the product manager would help you formulate that product sense and how those things work. Uh, that is the next thing. The third thing I would recommend is to build the product management skills, to not lose on your technical skills. Rather, build on top of that. So what that means is like product managers are really data driven. So to make any decisions, it's less intuition, it's more data. So start looking into the data analysis piece of what data is helpful to provide you good quantitative analysis and a pulse on your users. So that could mean really going back into the logs and really like creating some pivot charts and patterns to see if there are things that come out of that quantitative analysis. Uh, More often than not, we can't go and talk to the user on day-to-day basis to get their feedback. So our second tool in our arsenal is actually quantitative data. And who controls that data? It is actually software engineers through all the instrumentation and telemetry. So I would encourage you have the access to the data, see what patterns you can find out using that data, build graphs, build some analysis tools, and see how where the user problems are surfacing through data. That is a skill that will take you a long way because the product managers heavily rely on data engineers, data scientists, software engineers to make these data driven decisions. And if you have that skill set within yourself, you can do it yourself in future, right? I still do a lot of data analysis myself. I write a bunch of SQL queries. I create a lot of Grafana graphs. I have created a lot of Splunk dashboards just to understand what my users are doing. And I think that skill I always gained, like I had gained through my software engineering days. So take that along with you. Do not let go of the skill sets that you have gained, but just augment that with the product skills that you are looking into. And the more you work towards these skills, the next step to transition fully into a product management career would be to start from the zero level, which is how does if you have already gained the skills, just like reflect that on your resume to gain that first foot in the door for the product manager. And if you have the skills, if you have demonstrated that level of user impact, I, in my opinion, I think like it should be able to open the doors for you in the product management world.
Perfect. Thank you. That's awesome. I think that's actually a nice guide for aspiring engineers out there who are thinking about this transition as well. Um, would you recommend some resources, like some books that you found valuable during this transition, or even like some product management books that you currently like that you maybe read through again and again, or if there were some courses or some other resources that you might recommend?
Yeah, a couple of books that I can recommend for someone looking to transition into product is uh, start with there's a book called The Lean Product Group, the Lean Product Book, and that essentially what tells you is like how do you operate with minimal resources to build a successful product. It's a very powerful book to start with. The other book that I recommend is it's called Zero to One by Peter Thiel, and it's again a very good book to understand how to build product from ground up. A lot of times what happens is like we look at, let's say, Spotify of the world or Amazons of the world and say that, hey, like these are really solid products. But very rarely we try and understand like what was the genesis of that, right? So the zero to one book will give you like a good insight on like how do you start from the base level, work back from the user, and really build like really impactful product that have actually solved problems. We only look at the billion-dollar businesses. We never look at the $100 product that it initially started as. So this is another powerful book. Uh, the other book that is by Simon Sinek, and it's called Start with the Why. And it's a very powerful book to just visualize how everything boils down to the why. And it's not just related to products. Like you can apply that logic and the same sentiment to any area of your life. Because if you start back from the why, you can really understand the rationale behind how things have happened and why they have happened. So that's a really powerful book as well. Uh, from the product management courses, I haven't gone through any product management course per se, but I do think there are a lot of powerful resources on YouTube. Uh, for example, I do a lot of webinars with the product school, so that's another powerful resource, which is like free of cost available on YouTube. You can like look at different sort of courses available. You can hear from a lot of product leaders in different companies and like understand their experience and learn from them. So a lot of such powerful courses are available on YouTube as well.
Great, thanks for these recommendations. So, yeah, we went through your successful transition. We gave some advices for aspiring PMs that are looking to transition from engineering as well. I will have
Mhm.
my favorite fives now. These are the questions that I ask
Okay.
every product manager on this podcast. So the first question is, what is your number one challenge at work?
Ah, that's a good one. I would say the number one challenge in my work is to take the village along with me when I'm building something. And that's a big statement, I understand. But like what this means is when I'm building something, I can't build that in a silo. So I need to take my cross-functional partners as well as other teams across the company along with me to build something. While that introduces some friction and like slowness, I think it's super important that you do that because when you actually build something, you will have contributions from a lot of the people. And like that sort of feedback will help you build success faster. So even though that is the most challenging piece of bringing the teams and cross-functional partners together, I think it is extremely important.
Okay. If you could choose one key metric, the North Star that defines your success as a product leader, what would it be?
That's another good one. Uh, I would say the North Star of my product management career here would be the number of times I have successfully had the user impact that I initially intended to. So if I started with a vision that I wanted to deliver the user impact with, and I've actually successfully delivered that by the end of it, that is my North Star metric. So my North Star metric here would be like, how many times have I done that? I would bet uh, I would like to believe a lot, but I don't think that is true because a lot of times there are a lot of failures, and I have faced failures in delivering that right level of user impact, which came the learning. So that would be my North Star.
Okay, great. Now, how do you collect feedback from your customers? What processes and tools do you use for that?
Yeah. Uh, Typically, I do it in two ways. One is qualitative feedback, which I typically gather through either a lot of user interviews or talking to user-facing roles such as like who are on support side, for example, technical account managers, customer success managers, who have a very strong pulse on the user. Uh, I typically gather qualitative feedback through that. The second mechanism I use is the quantitative data that I mentioned. So whenever I write up a PRD or any product brief, one very important section in that document is always how do we measure success? And as a part of that, I try and outline a lot of data that I want to capture through the user journeys that I've defined that will enable me to understand how the users are using the product. And if you start looking deeply into that data, that gives you a lot of insights. So I use a lot of quantitative data to understand the user feedback and also like incorporate that in my roadmap for the next releases.
Hmm. Cool. Now, build versus buy. How do you decide?
Hmm. I think it again goes back to the user problems that you're trying to solve. The reason being, like, for example, if you have three user problems that you have identified, and there is an existing solution in the market that already solves those problems, it is futile to build a new product from ground up. So in that case, you say that, hey, like, here is the product that already exists. Figure out like if there are customization options available to cater to the user specifically. If not, then out of the box solution is good enough. However, that's not the case in most of the scenarios. A lot of times you figure out like there is a unique user problem that you have discovered, and there is a market gap that presents an opportunity which is large enough to build a product. So if you want to like if you have identified the right set of user problems, and the opportunity size that comes with those problems is large enough, which means that there are a lot of sizable market size that is impacted by the same problems. Then you can build a product and try and solve problems for all of them. Because in that case, what it does is, one, it solves the user problems that you start set to. Second, it presents you an enormous growth opportunity with respect to the market size that you have identified. And third, it presents you a monetization opportunity. So now that the users have adopted your product, you can start monetizing and really start building a viable business out of it. So, like, these are the valid reasons to really start looking into building a product. But if there's an existing thing that already solves the problem, essentially you will be in a market where you'll be competing for the users, which is not very helpful.
Great. My final question, what role do integrations with third-party products play in your product?
Ah, third party products. I think they're very helpful. So same as the build and buy logic, right? Like why build something yourself if there is something already available out there? So third party products in general have made a lot of things simpler. For example, uh, we use a lot of Splunk dashboards in general to understand how to build this. So like if you were to build an in-house tool, that will not serve the purpose. We also use a lot of AI tools. Uh, For example, I heavily use Balsamic to wireframe. And if I were to just build something in house, that will not be very helpful. So, using these third party tools have made my job as a product manager simpler and actually more efficient. Uh, which in the past I used to do it all on myself, and there was literally no support. So, like, they have actually tried and made my job simpler, but not all third party tools do that. So we need to be very careful about like which tools we use, if they have been approved internally, and then like be careful about using them.
Okay, got it. All right, well, actually, thank you very much. This is the end of this episode. Maybe if you can share with our listeners where they can follow you, what would be your preferred social network where they can give you a follow when you're maybe sharing some interesting content.
Yeah, I'm available on LinkedIn. So anyone who's interested in following my journey, my name is Akshay Bhalla, and you can search me up on LinkedIn. Uh, Over there, I do post about any such great conversations I've had, any webinars or public speaking that I'm doing, and then anything that I'm building on product side. So follow me there.
All right, perfect. Thank you again, and I wish you a great day.
Thank you so much, Jerry. It was great. Thank you so much. Have a good one.